Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Jason Miles, and welcome to another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. And yes, I am late. I'm late. And there's no one to blame but myself because I was having a very good conversation with our guest. It's his first time on. And we're talking about something that if you watch the Beyond the Red Zone show that we do, we'll be doing it tomorrow. This topic is actually going to lead into a lot of what we're going to be talking about tomorrow on Beyond the Red Zone. But we have been talking a lot about how sports betting is affecting the way people are viewing the game. Tonight's show is going to be a little less about how people are viewing the game, but kind of how ubiquitous betting has become. If you are new to what we do here and you do end up digging it on your way out, please make sure to hit the like button. Of course, the subscribe button is a passive gesture that goes a very long way. If you like what we write here on this show, you know, I've done my fair share of writing. Pascal's done his fair share of writing. Wherever you are watching or listening, there's always links in the description to our writings. Cuba, Deep State Cuba, and Ben Burgess have a new piece out in Jacobin that Kuba will be coming on next week to talk about. I'm very excited about that. And if you mildly dig what I write, we have a new series here at TIR, The Crisis Papers. And the third edition is up right now. Wherever you're watching or listening, there's a link in the description to that. If you're a patron, of course, you get it for free. It is my very somber prediction on where I think we're headed as a society. Check it out, please. Let me know what you think. Maybe we'll do a little one-off show on that on Friday. Maybe, just maybe. But let's talk about why we should make sports betting taboo again. Watching sports has always been a communal experience, a moment to witness skill, strategy, and competition. But these days, for many people, simply watching the game seems to be a thing of the past. The line between spectatorship and speculation has blurred thanks to the rise of fantasy sports and the explosion of legal sports betting across the U.S. As I sat at my favorite bar watching last night's Monday Night Football doubleheader, it became clear that the focus of contemporary sports coverage is no longer on the game itself, but on the odds, prop bets, and over-unders. What used to be a pastime has transformed into a calculated, quantified experience where every throw, every yard, every touchdown is tied to a monetary wager. The commodification of sports through the lens of gambling has created a new form of alienation. Fans are no longer simply enjoying a game, but engaging in what amounts to a mass profit-driven enterprise designed to exploit their passions. The apps, sponsorships, and partnerships with gambling companies make placing bets easier and more normalized than ever before. But who really wins in this system? Our guest today, Clark Randall, a journalist for Jacobin Magazine, argues that it's not the fans who are winning. In his latest article, Make Sports Betting Taboo Again, he shows that the real losers are downwardly mobile young men whose participation in sports betting often deepens their financial precarity. As states rake in the tax revenue from legalized gambling, the social costs mount. Clark challenges us to reconsider our normalization of sports betting and asks, where should the left draw the line in a world of hyper-liberalized consumption? Please welcome, coming all the way live from the East Coast, please welcome Clark Randall. Hey. What's going on, brother?
Man, I'm doing good. I did just see someone in the chat, though, mention Marcellus Williams, and that's the next piece I'm writing for Jacobin. A man, black man in Missouri, was just executed about an hour ago for a murder he most likely didn't commit.
Yikes. So 2014, 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Your home of St. Louis. I mean, not to derail the show too much, but your home of St. Louis kind of is the fertile ground for maybe the largest wave of BLM protests until 2020. And you're saying that in 10 years, you lose a senator that comes from the BLM movement, and now someone gets executed who people think most likely didn't commit a crime.
Yeah, it's great that you know the 10-year. I mean, rest in peace, Mike Brown. Mike Brown. This is how I got my start in journalism, was through activism, and St. Louis will really never forget that time. And I think it's a shame that in 10 years, it's now the Marcellus Williams case that it kind of feels like over and over there's a case, there's a person, there's a face to mourn, and it's a sad occasion. But yeah, God bless his family, and yeah, it's not right.
Taking it back to sports on a bit of a lighter note, you are from St. Louis, a town that no football team wants to stay in.
We just want to pay. We just want to pay for the dome. We're good on the team. We just and then we'll just repackage that and refinance it and ad infinitum and just keep paying. So we're good.
I grew up watching the St. Louis Cardinals. Neil Lomax and the St. Louis, O.J. Anderson and the St. Louis Cardinals. There was some pretty good St. Louis Cardinals teams. They played in the NFC East, if I'm not mistaken, which was kind of rough for travel, but that was a tough division, and there were some pretty good teams. And then they, of course, moved to Arizona in the 90s, was it? I think they moved to Arizona. And then you get the Rams, which was a debacle at first, and then you get the greatest show on turf in St. Louis, and you would think that would build a football-loving paradise. But what people always told me about St. Louis, and you can tell me if this is true, is like, this is a baseball town. This isn't a football town. You think that's true?
It's a broke town, is what it is.
Then there's that.
There's a good George Lipsitz has a good book chapter, and I think it's called "How Racism Takes Place," about the financial inner workings of the St. Louis Rams and the hundreds of millions of dollars that sports team cost the public school system. And you got county people coming into the city to watch the game. It's really not. It's happening again with the MLS in St. Louis, but it's kind of a rinse and repeat. Build a stadium, find a new sport, tax breaks, rip off the public schools. Maybe MLS will stay. It's got maybe a bigger fan base than people expected, but the football example should have been enough. It should have been enough to kind of let you know where this was probably going to head.
I mean, it wasn't just like you guys had a pretty good team. There was a moment where the Rams, towards like the end of the 90s, the Rams went from being there's this great clip of the Niners just kicking the crap out of the Rams in like the mid 90s. I think the quarterback's name at the time was like Tony. Was it Tony Hill? Was that his name? Oh, I can't remember the guy's name. It's right around the time Dick Vermeil came there as his coach.
I'm not recognizing that name.
And the Niners are beating the Rams, and there's a camera on the Niners sideline, and they go, "Man, same old sorry ass Rams," right? And because in the 80s, the Niners and the Rams was like a great rivalry when it was Jim Everett and Henry Eller and Eric Dickerson and that. And so then the Niners kind of have this bit of a fall from grace in the 2000s for a moment after Steve Young retires and Jeff Garcia comes in there. They're shaky for a minute, and the Rams with Kurt Warner just all of a sudden are blowing everybody out. Right, the greatest show on tour. Marshall Faulk, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce. What a great team, and then they're joking on the sidelines, sorry ass Niners, because they were just blowing everybody out, and they win that Super Bowl against a very good Tennessee Titans team.
This is the famous picture with the ball spread out right at the line, right?
Yep. Such a good game, right? And then they go back and face the New England Patriots, and that's kind of the end That's the end of that team.
And
Yeah.
it was, I mean, my recollection is it was a little bit shady, so forgive me, but it's my recollection that after that there wasn't much of a reason to watch the Rams. We did get Steven Jackson, who all
He's
time
great.
rated back. He should be in these conversations, like an original Marshawn Lynch
Yes.
type. But that kind of helped ease the pain. But after that, it was I personally just wore the gear. I stopped really watching. It was getting tough.
It's I can talk about football forever, and sometimes I do on my sports show. Like I literally have a sports show just so I can talk football with my friend. But thinking back to how quickly that team almost dissolved, because like you said, they replaced a Hall of Fame running back with a guy that for whatever reason doesn't get Hall of Fame recognition, maybe because the Rams weren't very good.
One of the most dominant backs of his era.
But it goes back to kind of what we were talking about off air, where who are the journalists that are talking about these guys and how are they viewing the game? And that's kind of what I want to get into now, because I do think that sports betting on one hand has opened up certain games to a lot of different people that might not have watched them before. Like you get that with the Final Four, right? Like everybody's got a Final Four pool
Bracket, yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of opens up a lot of people. Oh, this looks kind of interesting. Let me check this game out.
Mhm.
That's greatest case scenario, not even best case scenario. That's greatest case scenario. But usually, it's just people kind of transfixed on a device, especially with also the ubiquity of fantasy leagues. Like I was watching the two Monday night games at a local bar here in Mexico,
Mhm.
and a buddy of mine said he's in like 4 fantasy leagues or something, and he had been losing all the leagues, and Terry McLaurin was one of his players, and of course he played in the Redskins game, and I told him at towards the end of the game I was like, dude, I he's gonna catch a touchdown pass, you're gonna win your fantasy, da, 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 da. And the whole time he's like, but he's not even watching the game. He's
No,
he's watching his phone. He goes, I just need one catch for 12 yards. Now, for me personally, as a football fan, I'm a diehard football fan. My team is the Denver Broncos, and I can watch every game. The bar I go to puts every game up. So
yeah.
for me, it's heaven. I'm constantly on a chair that I can swivel around, and I'm watching every game, and I'm watching every play. And there is an artistry to sports that I love. For example, in the Olympics, there's some images from this past Olympics that for me are beautiful and mind blowing. Who is the Sha'Carri Richardson? Is that her name? When
Yes.
she broke that record and you see her just turn her head and look in the camera, that's one of the
Lot,
baddest shots I've ever seen, right?
yeah.
Steph Curry shooting that 3 over
And
Wembanyama.
he couldn't see the hoop in the freeze frame. He's like this.
Yeah, was shooting that over Wembanyama. These, for
Yeah,
me, that's the drama of sports that you get when ABC does like the wide world of sports, where we're going to show you the drama. And we were talking about football and NFL films, which actually predates. No, I think they actually are about the same time as the wide world of sports. I'd have to double check. But anyway, they were amazing at the drama and the beauty of the game, not the players' personal lives, not the shoes they were wearing, just the game itself. What happened in the trenches. The autumn wind is a raider. Like that poem. I'm from Oakland, California.
that rings.
Every person I know that dare wear silver and black gets chills when that comes on. There is no song, regardless of genre, that can get people more fired up than that poem about watching a Raider game in autumn. I'm from the Bay Area. We don't have brown leaves. It stays green all year. But there's something about that poem that transfixes them, gets them ready for the game, and they lose their mind. I love that. Even though I hate the Raiders, I love that poem. I love that part of sports. Is that something that you saw as well, Clark?
I mean, you made me think of a lot of things. I'm thinking of watching the Ravens come out of the tunnel,
Mm-hmm.
and you see, I don't know the name of the song that would come on when Ray would come out last,
Mm-hmm.
but you would always see it in slow-mo, and it as a non-football player, someone who's never tackled a man in his life, I got this sense that I could come across the middle and knock someone out. And I'm 6'5", a buck 50 at the time, like, but it made me feel like I could access, whatever's going on in his shit. When he lifts the leg up and stomps it down and pulls one of these, I'm like, I'm watching this in slow-mo, and I'm like, on a bad day, I could get moved to tears.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't know why. It's just like you understand something about what this. Even when Ray Lewis talks about sports, he'll come to the Miami Dolphin or the Miami Hurricanes locker room, and he'll talk about what it means to trust your brother on the field and being in sync as a unit. I get really worked up. I get
Mhm.
really emotional. Like these are the aspects of sports that have me try as I may to get into other endeavors, intellectually or academically, just kind of like they just are hooked, like can't get away from it. Like
Well, there's a direct line to left. To me, there's a direct line to leftism.
it's a movement.
If you dare try to do any sort of organizing, and you're not a team sports person, you're not gonna be very good at it.
Yeah,
You don't know how to talk to people. You don't know how to work together.
yeah,
Right? When you play sports, I don't care what you play. I don't give a damn. You got to sweat with somebody. You got to work with somebody. You got to train with somebody. And not everybody is on the same page as far as like politically, the way everybody sees the world. You can be around people that have some very different.
individually now though. Don't forget that.
Say again?
Everybody just trains individually now though.
Oh, that's whack, dude.
The attractive sports is on. All the NBA players, they do their own individual. Like practice time is being cut across all sports.
Really?
Oh yeah, the leagues are sanctioning. You can only have a certain amount of hours of practice, and they're all doing it for the players, the supposed players' benefit. But what happens is people just end up working out the sport as an individual, and you can see that in the way the NBA game has progressed. I don't know as much about how the football game has progressed, but this idea of even with football is always about this is the name on the front of the jersey,
Mhm.
either no name on the back, but it's certainly not about the name on the back. That's changing. The
Yeah.
contracts, the money flowing through these new contracts, guys know, oh, we got to start a podcast. We got to get our faces out there. It's becoming compartmentalized more and more to the individual. And football was kind of the last stronghold of team. Is the Ravens defense. You don't think of Ray Lewis, you think of Ray Lewis, but it's
Yeah.
like that's a team defense. You could probably name 5 guys off of it. Now I think the trajectory that everything is headed in. I think sports betting and individual prop players is all a part of this. The individuation of these teams and the hypermobility of the players. Everybody's moving at a rate never before seen from team to team. It's just connected to capital accumulation, both for the players and for the owners. But these sentimental days, I love romanticizing this shit. I think it needs to be romanticized. But these days of like a Ravens defense that was a thing for a decade, I don't know if we see that in sports again. And I don't know that sports gambling is unrelated to that fact.
That's interesting because I remember as a little kid, there was a Sears I think it was a Sears or JCPenney catalog. And there was like all the toys that you wanted, and you'd circle everything like a wish list. I never got half of this. I never got any of this shit that I circled at my grandma's house, but I circled it anyway because she would shut me up. It was shut here, look at this and be a consumer and shut up. And so, but one of the things that was in there was, and I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember this. I don't know if there's enough old guys watching. They would have these things for kids, and I haven't seen them since, but I thought they were. If anyone has one, I will put my PO box on the thing and mail me one. I will wear that shit as an adult. I don't care. It was like a shirt, like those old school jersey looking
I know
shirt.
what you're gonna say.
And it had the number. And sometimes it would have a player's name, but sometimes it wouldn't. It would have the number of the star player, and you got a little helmet with it. And one set had little pants with it. And I was like, oh, I wanted one of those so bad. The plastic helmet. If you played any kind of sports with it, you was gonna get CT. But I just wanted that so I could wear it on Sunday. And I followed the whatever number was on that jersey.
Yeah.
I tried to find the football card that matched it, and I would follow all these players' careers. And in that era, these guys stayed with teams for a long time, even when they had lulls. So off air, we were talking about the 83 NFL draft, and you have guys like John Elway, Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, Ken O'Brien, Tony Eason, and Todd Blackledge, quarterback-wise, come out in the first round of that, but Jim Kelly goes to the USFL, right? But still, you got drafted in the first round by the Bills. There are moments in Elway and Marino's career where they hit these lulls in their early 30s where they weren't playing that well. And Jim Kelly came into the league not playing well at all. The Bills took some serious lumps when he came in. It took a while for them to get good, but people saw it through with them. Coaches were allowed to have maybe subpar seasons, and those guys became Hall of Famers that did some of the most fantastic things on a football field that we still talk about today. Elway went to 3 Super Bowls in a row with the Broncos, not winning any, eventually won them in the 90s towards the end of his career. Jim Kelly went to 4 Super Bowls in a row, sadly not winning any. And Dan Marino breaks every passing record until Peyton Manning ends up breaking his record. A year, decades later, almost 30 years later, he breaks those records. And in a 16-game season, let's mind you that. Now we have an extra game and no one's broken Peyton Manning's record in a pass-happy league. But there's ebbs and flows of these guys' careers that you went through. Every year wasn't a perfect year. Eric Dickerson comes out in that 83 draft as well. His second season is a phenomenal season, but he never sniffs a Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams, and then he goes and has a blockbuster trade to the Colts and doesn't sniff a Super Bowl there as well. But still, we look at these guys like Jim Kelly could slap a baby in Buffalo, even though he never won a Super Bowl there. Dan Marino could slap a baby, and various ethnicities of babies too, because it's very multicultural in Miami. And Dan Marino get away with it. Nobody's going to say anything. Never won a Super Bowl. I don't know if that happens now, because I do think, to your point with sports betting and fantasy sports, there's this different valuation we have on people, and the way we see the game is almost through this like McKinseyite analyst lens. So we just look at people like widgets. They're not on a pedestal anymore. They're just widgets that you can move around. So regardless of the sports you play, if you stay with the team, like, it made me sad that Klay Thompson had to leave the Warriors, because he's a fixture in the Bay Area. He actually lived not far from where I was living with my son's mom. He was cool with people in the community. That goes a long way when you're actually in the community which you play in. But how do you feel about that, Clark?
You made me think of how I used to have card books. Like this, every page was a team. I follow the NBA. So I got Lakers on one, I got the Sixers. But to this day, I can name like every long-term player from the 2000s for each of these teams, because they generally stayed put, and you kept having battles over and over, year after year, that lets you get into what I think is one of the main things missing from sports with it, which is some narrative. The narrative aspect of sports has been completely bulldozed by the commodified compartmentalization, the statistical fetishization of players, and like you're saying, the mix and matching. You see this in the league. It drives me crazy that, and I am a LeBron stan. Like I will never, like, but
He's
the
your goat. He's your goat. That's what you grew up watching.
oh, the move to Miami is like you could mark it there, but you get after that all of these odd conglomerations. The most recent one is the back-to-back Brooklyn Nets to Phoenix Suns, where you have owners who clearly don't understand that it's not only about narrative but continuity across years, which develops team chemistry. This is why the USA, I think, is going to continue to struggle in Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
You can bring out the best talent by a mile, but if you're playing teams that know each other and they play a type of basketball that's probably actually a little bit more efficient than what has come out of the NBA as of late, you're not gonna win. You're not gonna win. Like if you just break down, the way that this works into the game. If you look at a stat like passes per game in the NBA, the Americans go to the Olympics and we average by far the least passes per game of any of these national teams. And we wonder why a country like Serbia, which shouldn't compete with our New York All Stars, let alone our American All Stars, is running us up 15 in the fourth quarter. It has something to do, I think, with passing. And passing has something to do with team continuity. It's not that these players are selfish. It's that if you constantly churn players through, you're not going to know how this guy rolls to the hoop. You're not going to know where this guy likes to catch coming off a curl. You're just not going to know that. So you're not going to pass. You're going to do what you know how to do, which is amazing to watch. I love to watch it probably more than the next guy. But there is something that is being lost here. And there seems to be no corrective, even though the teams that are winning are the teams that aren't doing this. The Denver Nuggets in the league, the Kansas City Chiefs in the NFL, the teams that are making an effort to build foundational teams, to allow coaches to coach, to allow players to learn how to play with each other. They're winning. It's not that close. I think we got a false idea with LeBron that you can in the league just kind of put players together. And it's like, no, LeBron can do that. You can't do that. But it is a bit increasingly hard to watch the trajectory and not see where it's going to end. Like, when is the turn going to come back towards, if ever, a different kind of relationship with team chemistry, sports, and the like?
Well, we're getting a big dose of it with the NIL, and it's not going to get better with NIL, right? Because in the transfer portal, there's some pros to it. Like I think players should be able to transfer and make money. They should be as much money as these cats been making. I don't know if you saw recently, Reggie Bush just filed a lawsuit against the NCAA for using his likeness on all those games in the early
game where he's on the front.
Yeah, man. Reggie Bush was a joystick in college and kind of in the first part of the NFL till he gets hurt. I loved watching that guy play, and he unceremoniously got his career ended on bad turf. He did sue the league, and I believe he won a very large settlement.
I hope he keeps getting off the field then like this.
Well, he got his Heisman back. Like he's on this kind of legal tear to right certain wrongs, and the legal team is like, look, if you took this cat's Heisman away for literally doing what's legal now, you got to give it back to him.
Yeah.
So he got his. That's why he's in these new Heisman House commercials and all this other stuff. But
yeah, I noticed that.
In your article, you emphasized that sports betting disproportionately affects downwardly mobile young men. Can you expand on how this group has become a prime target of the gambling industry?
So, if you look at volume of money flowing into these websites, let's just look at like FanDuel and DraftKings. It's not that poor people are the only ones betting. the majority of the money coming in is coming from upper middle class sports bettors. The question is twofold. You will look at the targeting aspect second. The first question is who can afford to lose. So if I'm making, I don't know, 35,000 as a graduate student, and I want to bet, I don't know, a few $100s. Every bet kind of ranges between these 10, 20, 100, 200. And I'm betting with my friends, let's say they're making 80,000. We might all lose the same, but as a proportion of the income, it's wrecking me. It's wrecking my life. And they're noticing it likely, but they can afford to take certain amount of losses because they have a certain amount of disposable income. What we'll see is that the savings rate of people involved in sports fanhood will decrease as betting increases. I think they found that for every dollar waged, men 18 to 20, 18 to 35, there's $2 missing from their savings account for the coefficient of the other man who's not betting. So
That's insane.
a direct attack on your ability to save, to settle, to begin, to transition into adulthood. So that's the first aspect, who can afford to lose. The second is targeting. And what we see with targeting is that similar to what we see with the kind of, what was that documentary that came out, the social gamble. It was about Facebook. I'm forgetting the name of it. It went like super viral. Anyways, they're creating tranches of profiles for bettors. And you can think of it like every tranche has a kind of faucet to it. So you see DraftKings, FanDuel is on the top, and then you have tranches of bettors. Let's say I'm a loser, which everybody's losers, but to varying degrees.
Yeah.
I'm losing a lot of money on FanDuel. What are they doing? They are taking my faucet and they are turning it up. They are raining special offers on me, VIP treatment, free tickets to a game. People are reaching out to me, special lines on offers. You are just being catered to as if you're a winner. And if you're winning, which, no, I think it's about 1 to 2% of sports bettors are actually consistently winning across time. They are literally turning your faucet off, and they are legally allowed to do this. So about 1 to 2% of all sports bettors are being knocked out of the market. FanDuel is just saying, look, you're too good. You're costing us, and go find another platform. We are kicking you off. We are limiting the amount that you can bet, the frequency you can bet, and in some cases, you'll just be blacklisted by these sites entirely. So there is no such thing as winning. Most of us are mushing around in the middle of somewhere where it feels like we're between winning and losing. We win sometimes, we lose sometimes, but we're continually paying these books a kind of pseudo commission fees. So we're constantly losing even as we're winning. And that's the kind of targeting where, let's say they can create these profiles where we want to specifically market to 25 to 28-year-olds between $30,000 and $50,000 income with this range of a credit score with access to X number of credit cards.
Jesus.
They have these profiles, and they are algorithmically, I think this word is becoming overused, but it's useful. So algorithmically funneling advertisements to whoever they have deemed the most likely or vulnerable to continue to bet. And what they often find is that low-income people are often incentivized to bet to make up for things like lost wages, low wages. It can feel, I think a lot of people feel like they're doing this to supplement their income.
This is a more interactive lottery, the way you're making it sound. Like if Lotto was this thing that you did, once a week for the big jackpot, where I live or where I'm from in the Bay Area, and I'm sure it's the same all over the country. I haven't driven across the country in forever. There would be these big billboards that show what the big jackpot is and what this jackpot is,
Yeah.
And the last crazy one I saw when I was in the States, I think it was $1 billion.
Up to a billion. Yeah.
And I was like, this is insane. But it's a different kind of gamble. It's like Vegas, right? It's like roulette. It's a very different gamble. When you're watching a game, it feels like it's just more interactive because there's a game. You still have to see the play, but you're watching it. Like, I was never a sports bettor. I don't dig it. I'm never a fantasy guy. I don't dig it. If I like my team, I don't want to root against my team for some magical points and
Yeah.
$50 at the end of the year. And I don't give a damn about that. But the cats that watch that, it's almost like they're watching a different game. Kind of back to the original story. It's like my boys watching the game. It's like, this is a good game that we're watching here. That was the first game on Monday night where there were no punts.
Dang, that's a stat.
On either side. And you can't enjoy that because you got to look at the fantasy thing. You got to check this thing, and you got gambling going on. And there's so much going on. And I also think it makes people feel important. It makes you feel like you're doing something. You feel like, the Wolf of Wall Street when you got 12 screens going at once for all.
Men, let's talk about it. Well, for men who are a bit systematically marginalized in the school setting, in the traditional school setting, male attributes aren't really what's brought forth in the classroom. I think these sports gambling sites give a lot of men a platform to feel intellectual, to feel engaged at that thinking level, whereas in the classroom, I mean, the stats are coming in, the stats will only increase. I'm at Brown. I think Brown is accepting close to 60-40 towards women, and that's probably based off of a concerted effort to not let it get to something like 70-30. But for men who want to feel like they have a grip on a knowledge base, sports. We're not pushing men to sociology.
No.
Not pushing men to, like, I don't know, any other potentially vibrant intellectual life. And I love sports. I think it is intellectual. It's just that I think what you see here is a lot of the people who are most in tuned, they want to see sports analytically. They want to see sports. The whole legal battle of sports betting is whether it's a game of skill or whether it's pure gambling. And ask any man who's betting on a sport, they don't think they think they're playing a game of skill. And I don't mean to patronize them. I think it can be sold in that regard. You can look up the stats, the tendencies, the next gen stats, the frequencies, and it is intellectually engaging, and it gives you something to talk about your friends with. The issue is that you're getting systematically fleeced while you're doing it. You brought up the March Madness. I have some great childhood memories of printing out March Madness stuff, me and my friends, and we're writing in all the games.
All your brackets, yeah.
It is an intellectual exercise. We are debating. We are thinking really hard about key matchups, who plays well. It is a real intellectual exercise. The difference is we all put $20 in a freaking bowl, and at the end of it, no one gets ripped. We all that money just goes to whoever probably got the luckiest. The issue is now, as friends, we're all individuated, whereas we're not friend to friend, we're friend to platform to friend, and the platform's ripping both of us off, and we could have just, done the old fantasy league thing where a bunch of guys get in a room and pick their teams and just kind of let it be something between them that has like a funny bet at the end of it or something. That's gone.
Now, in your article, you bring up Robinhood and the day trading app Robinhood, which I think you put that as a precursor to this trend in sports betting apps. That was big news. Well, how many years ago was that? Maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2020, 2021.
You want to tell us a little bit about Robinhood and how that all works?
It's just so similar. The more I got to thinking about it, the more it's like it's just so similar. But with Robinhood, you did have a similar moment of a kind of total insecurity. And again, I don't know what the gender numbers on Robinhood was. I know it's majority men, but I did have a lot of women who are also getting into investing as a form of empowerment. And you want to be supportive to everyone who seeks self-empowerment. However, you're just not getting a full picture of what that interaction is looking like, or what's actually taking place in that interaction. So with Robinhood, the whole thing is free trading. The whole thing, no one would have started trading if you had to go through, I don't know who it is in our block or someone and pay $15 a commission for your trade, because you're probably not investing more than $100, so you probably don't want to lose 15% off the top. What they found in the legal cases with Robinhood is that they were just charging commission behind the scenes. They just weren't telling you they were charging commission. Um, so what we thought was a good deal, or what we thought was, again, an intellectual exercise in contending with the market, becoming engaged with maybe what feels like the real world, what feels like consequential, proactive, even like proactive to helping yourself, is I think what a lot of people felt like when they were getting into the market. It's like, maybe I'm insecure in my job, and this is a proactive way, a socially acceptable way, a way that has formerly only been done by the upper classes who hold 95% of the general stocks in this country. So you also get to dabble in that, like, am I living like the other people live? Um, and what we saw with Robinhood was, what we're seeing with sports betting is there are no winners. It's just like that is a statement that, of course, can be picked apart, but it cannot be rejected. There are no winners. Even the people who won, or who, if you thought you won with GameStop, I would love to check in and see where your trading account is now. Um, it's it's probably not looking good, and that's just the fact of the matter. The people who have devoted their entire life to day trading aren't making money day trading. So the idea that we could just enter these markets and play like the other people play, someone should have told us in a non-patronizing fashion, don't do this. There's high interest savings accounts.
Yeah.
There's the S&P 500. There's boring things you could be doing that are actually a lot more beneficial, but um, that's not what happened, and certainly no one's stepping up with sports gambling to get in the way of that.
No, it's insane the way people talk on these shows. The punditry shows is all about over unders. I listen to so it's crazy where I live in Mexico. The towers are for a lot of the AM stations and FM stations in San Diego. They're like near where I live.
Mm.
So I get good reception on sports radio. So I can listen to sports radio. I drive all the way to the Bay Area to see my family. And it's the only thing I don't mind listening to someone talk. But when I hear these cats talk, sports talk has always been extremely conservative, but now it's just betting talk. What's the over under on the amount of wins such and such is going to have, you think, as a quarterback? How many touchdowns is he going to throw? The line on FanDuel says, what?
I feel you feel like you've been violated at some level. Unbeknownst to myself, know more about sports betting than I ever wanted to know, because I care about
Mhm,
sports. I
mhm.
never wanted to know any of this, but you cannot avoid it. Now it's on the main broadcast.
Yep.
They're talking about betting. That was supposed to be the line. That was, I don't know why, I think, but that was something was supposed to stop. It wasn't supposed to get on the actual, former chair of John Madden to talk about spreads. Uh, that that's the kind of moment where you realize a kind of hyper normalization process has succeeded because they just dropped casually some new odds after a missed field goal and no one blinked an eye. I was like, okay, cool.
It's so insane because as someone just wrote in the chat comments that was a talk station that was a kind of bit of a talk sports station in the Bay Area where I grew up. KG always said it's just a gambling station now. They're so entrenched in the game. When you watch the morning shows, it has a little FanDuel icon on the side, and the morning shows integrate your use of the apps while you're watching what's supposed to be a breakdown of the game you're going to see. I'm old enough to remember those early sports shows that weren't, a gajillion hours long, and they would have a guy that was always like a super stereotypical mob odds maker, bookie guy. Like there was a guy named Jimmy the Greek that got a lot of flack when he was like drunk, saying like, "Oh, black guys, they kind of bred them as slaves to be really strong. What do you look at it? Look at this Molignano here, right?" But Jimmy the Greek would come on for like not even like 10
I know
minutes.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, they made it. I think they did a 30 for 30 on him, which was really
sad.
Exactly. But that guy would come on towards the end of the show and take Pittsburgh at 3.5 over the Chargers. Hey, like that's what it was. And that's all. But these lines have always been there, but it wasn't for, how can I put it? It was for a certain crowd. Betting always happened. People had illegal bookies. Even when I was in high school.
The problem.
You had a problem.
Used to be people with a problem.
You had to like, hey, I got a bookie. Like we even in high school, we had friends that had bookie. Like I got a bookie guy, and you have to, because I'm, and now the bookie is in your phone, so the ominous atmosphere of gambling is gone. FanDuel's not going to break your legs. They're just going to make sure you can keep doing the thing, and they're going to, they have a direct into your account most likely. So
someone brought up Dan Levitard in the comments.
Oh God,
he's a part of the DraftKings network. It's not only, like I listen to what could only be described as an absurd amount of sports talk content. It is genuinely at times getting in the way of my work and other parts of my life, but that's just me. I think it's time to start to get a little bit angry at the people who are smarter than this and are still capitalizing off this. I shouldn't be watching LeBron James and JJ Redick talk P&R or backside help schemes, and then have a flash where it's, if you bet $10 on FanDuel, use the code JJ10 to get 10% off your next. Like, you can't tell me that you two don't know exactly what's at play here. And it's not just some of the podcasts. Someone tell me in the comments if they've seen a sports podcast lately where you have not been interrupted with a promotion to get 10% off, to get $10 towards your next bet, to have a special offer on a special parlay. It would seem as if it's illegal now to make a sports podcast that isn't sponsored by DraftKings or FanDuel. And it's at some point there has to become a counter wave of content creators, sports journalists, sports talkers who are pushing against this, who are providing information for the non-sports gambler or the person who doesn't want to be watching something sponsored by one of these two monopolies.
It feels like sports gambling is the third rail. If Israel's the third rail for politics, hey, look who's getting run off. the Democratic Party didn't give a damn about Cori Bush as long as she was blackety black.
Yeah.
You get girl and everything else in her office until she said in Palestine. They were like, well, with your ass. Look
Yeah.
at Jamal Bowman. Look at what they're trying to do to Rashida Tlaib. There's a third rail that you can't hit, and that third rail is we just don't talk about Israel in that way. You know, it's like Jedi shit. You know, these are just
similar to Robin Hood in 2020. I think we forget the level of absurdity we reached. In 2020, we had NBA players who were promoting the sale of commodified highlights.
What?
You have the rights to a video of a highlight
when the NFT thing was happening.
Yes. I mean, this is all one and the same story, but it comes around, and I remember thinking, like, you can't think I'm that dumb. Like, you can't think I'm gonna pay for a highlight I can watch on YouTube. But the whole idea is if you get in now, in like, 6 months, a year, this same copyrighted rights to this little highlight is going to be worth X number more dollars because all of these rich athletes are in the market, so the market's going to rise. I don't know what happened with that. It fell off a map. I haven't heard of it for some time, but crazy shit was happening that we just kind of let fly. We let smart college educated athletes get on here and try to sell us a highlight of an and one little layup that the world will never remember. Sell me at least Jordan from the free throw line. Don't sell me your little broke ass baby
and one layup.
No one
from the and one mixtape.
Oh yeah, you can sell me that. I will buy that.
Someone made a comment on a sports show that we did, and they said, I think sports gambling is going to destroy sports and it'll be over. This is the fall of Rome. And I'm like, well, it didn't fall in a day, and I don't think it's over per se. I do think there's tons of people still that just want to watch a game. But we are in an interesting moment where everything we say gets to get on these platforms, so we can feel like everything we say is we all are sports pundits now, right? And this is coming from some jerk off with a microphone in front of him in his bedroom in Mexico. There is something to be said about kind of playing to that, and you said it earlier about, like, everybody's their own personal analyst. And this is kind of an arena where you can feel smart without really knowing much. Just because you know that so-and-so tends to score a lot of points after a loss on a Thursday when they're traveling east this time of the year.
It's just like economists. You can know a lot. It doesn't mean you can predict the future. So no one's saying that you don't. I talk to a lot of guys. They have an incredible accumulated historical knowledge of the game that they're interested in. They know, if I ask someone who batted fourth for the Cardinals in 2008 and how many home runs did he have, someone would raise their hand and be like, Albert Pujols, 42 home runs, 132 RBIs. It is real intelligence, but it's just like the economists. You can know a whole lot about the economy. It does not mean that you can predict what will happen next, and that's where we get confused. It's no one's saying that you're dumb, and maybe some. I mean, if I were to try to sports gamble, I would be dumb about it. I would just go with whoever I liked and whatever. But it's a phenomena that goes across professions up to the highest registers of academic legibility and institutionalized backing. You have, I think it's a good point you make. You do know a lot. It just doesn't mean you know what's going to happen next. There's a difference. You just can't really know what happens next. That is, and should remain, the beauty of sports is that you have to watch. You cannot predict. You don't know.
Wasn't that the death of baseball when they did the Moneyball thing? And it's like,
I
well,
just watched that. I just
right?
watched the movie.
We're gonna get a left-handed guy in here to pitch this right-handed guy, even though our starters went 6 innings and pitched pretty well. We're gonna pull him because the numbers say that this puts us in the best position to win. I never really enjoyed that because it's like, well, these things are not predictable. You just can't predict if someone's gonna have their fastball all game. I've watched too many complete games.
Yeah.
I watched Kirk Gibson hit that home, and I hate the Dodgers. Oh, I hate the Dodgers. But watching Kirk Gibson hit that rocket off Dennis Eckersley in 1990 in that World Series I'll use the actual word swagger to the plate,
Yeah.
the literal sense of the word with a I forget the injury he had, and just hit a rocket off Eckersley, who I think had won the Cy Young that year. So the Moneyball players are people. This goes against everything you guys talk about. You have the dude that's pitching the right amount of innings. His velocity is there, facing a pinch hitter that's not even at 80%, and he took him yard. Like, that's why you watch the game. You watch the game for those moments.
You know, you were saying the fall of is this the fall of sports?
Mhm.
And I have a day. You said the Roman Empire didn't fall in a day, but I do have a day. And I tried to write an article about this. It got rejected from like 3 different places. The day for me was the day LeBron passed Kareem. Right. So like
Really? Okay, this is
I'll explain
interesting.
to you
Preach.
the way I see it. There's a famous picture. One of the best gifts I was ever given. My cousin gave me a book of photos, famous photos from the NBA. And it's just the classics of the 80s and the 90s. And one of the photos is, of course, Jordan after the step back on Byron Russell. He's just standing there and he's just holding. You can look the whole back. The photo is from behind him and it's looking out at the fans. You know the photo I'm talking about. It's iconic. No? Anywho, so he's holding the follow through and every fan is just absolutely mesmerized watching the ball.
Mhm.
The very same angle photo is taken of LeBron when he does his step back to pass Kareem at the foul line. He's like this. I'm going to sound like a Gen X millennial. Every single person is watching that historic moment through
Through
the
their
lens
phone.
of
Oh,
the camera.
yeah.
They're looking, they could be witnessing, and they have collectively chosen to not witness, even though they paid, I think the cheapest ticket is probably $5K to get into that arena. They're choosing to watch the highlight through their phone to get a video. And this is the day that I was like, okay, it's over. Like, rest in peace. Maybe it'll be revived. But it will never. This day marks a day when you actually notice the only person in the crowd who doesn't have a phone out is this one old famous actor. I forget his name, but someone pointed it out because it's that weird to not look through your phone at what will be the most iconic moment of probably their lifetimes in the NBA. And it's just you get to this sense that you're denying yourself. You're denying yourself the ability to witness greatness. And now I sound like I'm pontificating over LeBron, but whatever. You're denying yourself the ability to witness something for the idea that you can reproduce it and watch it later, or for the idea that I would imagine probably a quarter of that arena has a prop bet as
Mm.
to when LeBron is going to score this bucket. So every shot LeBron takes, everyone is like this. His own son is like this. It's like there will be no shortage of videos. Like what is happening here? Why are we doing this to ourselves?
Because we could do something we couldn't do before, and we could say we were there, first of all, and that's the ultimate. I was somewhere you weren't.
Social capital, yeah.
Yeah, right. We say we were there, and we can have people tell us that's cool that we were there, and we're cool that we were there. And sometimes you have nothing more to say than the image. The
You know
really
what would be really cool is calling a friend and telling him, "Dude, you wouldn't believe what I just saw."
that's still like the dopest thing ever.
Back fade away.
Like like watching games at a bar. Like I have a television at my house, but it's only hooked up to like the internet, right?
Mhm.
And I started killing all my streaming apps too, so I don't really have that much to watch.
Good for
So I
you.
go to a bar and I have to interact with people generally that I don't know because I live in a tourist town.
Yeah.
So there's a very small handful of us that live around here, and we come out every Sunday. But other off nights, they'll have games on or fights on and stuff like that, and we'll go hang out. And I'll always meet somebody. And there's nothing more fun to me than like watching a really cool game, seeing a really cool moment. Like I was watching the morning games on Sunday, the end of the morning games on Sunday,
Yeah.
and there happened to be a family next to me from Philadelphia. And Philadelphia came back and beat the Saints. It was a really good game.
Mhm.
And I always bring a bunch of donuts to the bar for the staff and forever whoever wants, donuts. It's Sunday morning, man. Fucking if you're not eating donuts on Sunday morning, then you're some sort of you hate America. That's who hates America. And I offered this couple a donut, and the guy was like, "Oh no, no, but really, I really appreciate you offering us," because he saw me give it to the staff, and they
Uh,
ran over. They saw me, and we're watching this game, and we're both kind of introducing ourselves, but we're also watching like, oh damn, did they gonna score? Oh damn! And when you're watching these oh damn moments with somebody, I'm not an Eagles fan. Like I said, I'm a football fan. I'm a sports fan.
mhm.
Just like watching a really good like combat sports match. When you see this like an improbable knockout, you're like, dude, can you believe that? And sharing that experience with the people around you is kind of why I enjoy watching that stuff in the first place with my friends.
It's the quickest way I've ever made a friend.
Yes.
And and
Yes.
it's not just watching, but also I moved to a new city and I haven't done this yet, but I'd never have worried about moving to a new place. The first thing I'll do is just show up to a basketball court and either watch pickup games or play pickup games. It's the same with a bar. A big game is on, just go watch. There's a way in which what's happening. I had a night like this the other night. They're showing WNBA games now on live TV.
Yeah.
I went out to a bar and I watched a Caitlin Clark game, and it was like 3 or 4 guys who came to watch Caitlin Clark, and I think it was the night they played that really good team, Minnesota Lynx,
Mhm.
and they also knew the players. Everybody knew the players on both teams, and it was just like, man, you can just kind of like step into this world with someone you don't know, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden you have like a potentially unlimited amount of shit to talk about. This just
Yeah.
doesn't happen anywhere else in my life or most people's life. So there is a need on some level for people who still care about this shit to like defend it at some point because it's just unclear where we're headed.
And it's for me, it's also an entryway, right? If we're comfortable about sports, how quick do you think it is for these people start? And I don't know why. I don't have a shirt on that says, "Please tell me about your political
I get
affiliation."
it, bro.
Right?
Yeah.
And the first next thing I know, oh, because right next to California, so we got a lot of Californians, and everybody's mad at somebody in California. And people start saying the most craziest off the wall bullshit, but a certain guard is down because we've bonded over the sports stuff, regardless of who your team affiliation is. And now I can interject leftist ideology in the conversation
What
without
is the
them.
cool the players own these teams?
Yeah.
You ever think about that?
Because most people that may say they're conservative, most MFers, man, they're so all over the place politically. And the team that they root for, Democrat or Republican, doesn't really mean much. Especially when we start talking real balls and strikes to these people.
It means almost nothing.
It means nothing because they're so like, I'm a Democrat, but I don't like these niggers when they start busting into these stores. No one's ever said that to my face. But seriously, there's something about sports conversations that can open up broader conversations, especially in a moment where people are like really hyper politicized. And even with the over politicization of sports, remember that Kaepernick moment where everybody was mad at him for kneeling, and then everybody kneeled and Trump said, I'm gonna stop you MFers from kneeling. And now there's racism and all this other shit, and we got to sing the Black national anthem for
Roger Goodell's gonna end racism if you haven't heard.
If you just keep letting black songs, if he sings Kool and the Gang at the Super Bowl, then that's just gonna end it.
It died that day.
If They Not Like Us comes on at the NBA Finals,
it will. It's gonna come on. What's gonna happen is gonna come on in the Super Bowl.
And that's right. Kendrick's doing the Super Bowl.
Of people who can afford a $60,000 Super Bowl ticket singing that song. So
and then like a big quilt is going to descend from the ceiling, and the quilt's going to have all the different colors holding hands. And then they'll pan to like some old racist white lady, and she'll have a tear rolling down her cheek because she'll understand the errors of her ways. And then Kamala will ascend.
You did literally scare me when you said I had like a visceral moment actually.
Mars shot.
I guess the election will be over. If that Super Bowl was being played November 3rd, it was descending from.
Can you imagine Kamala Harris in a white pantsuit
is coming down together?
She just descends in a white pantsuit, and then doves. Then 1,000 doves are released, and some of the doves are painted black and brown and yellow for Asians, because why the fuck not? And then racism is done. It's done. We could move on to more important issues like
we're just left with genocide.
Well, no, more important issues like who's peeing where.
Sure. Yeah.
Don't look at the genocide. Those aren't the droids you're looking for.
It could have, I swear that
Someone said they're sending this clip to Tariq Nasheed. Can you imagine how mad he would be if I was talking about Kamala Harris? Hey, Tariq Nasheed, go fuck yourself. I'm talking about Kamala Harris. She can go fuck herself too, but now I just asked for more trouble. Tim Walz comes out.
Oh, that one.
And Beyonce with her country song.
Tim Walz got his high school football team behind him.
Oh my God. That's the America that I want to see on display during our greatest sports moment. I want to see the make-believe pageantry of anti-racism on display. Full display.
This for you. We're getting there. Like this might be a year or two more, and that dream could come.
Look at this. Lin-Manuel Miranda writing her verse right now.
Wait, what does it say?
It said Lin-Manuel Miranda, the guy that did Hamilton. He's writing a verse right now. Like, if baby Jesus is real and Allah wants to bless just me, this is what I want for Christmas. Hey, Jay, what do you want for Christmas? I want the most unbelievable anti-racist display during Kendrick Lamar doing They Not Like Us with a choir of multiracial blind kids behind him. And
you know what I would have taken though before that though, and we were close, we just ran out of time, was the Trump versus Biden push-up contest. Being Super Bowl material.
You just want to see two old dudes bust their elbows out.
screw the interview with the president. We got time. We got halftime. We got the greatest game being played. We all fighting. Let's just put one here, be like 3 rounds, like push-ups, and then they box.
Ooh.
And then I don't know, something sumo related or
I would watch.
I think that probably got closer to happening than we'll ever know.
How realistic is it that Kamala could take on Nikki Haley in a pro wrestling match? I think they're around the same age. They're around the same
She
size.
will get worked. I'm afraid. I think Nikki Haley has a particular energy about her that you might not want to see in a ring.
So you think Nikki Haley is coming off the top rope?
Shoot for the takedown, and Kamala would start laughing or something. Like Kamala would think it's a game, and by the time she woke up, it'd be too late. I'm afraid.
I'm all in for that match regardless. I want to see more pro wrestling. I want to see people talk more pro wrestling with their politics. Just it's so pro wrestling anyway. Just go.
He should have been off for RFK then. He was.
Oh yeah, he was full. He went full hog. He went full hog on the crazy shit. And if you're gonna be crazy and treat this shit like a popularity contest about beautiful people,
someone say Kamala has a gun.
Can you imagine Kamala?
That Oprah moment? Is that real life?
That's real life. This is not fantasy, as Queen sang. Yeah.
It used to mean something to run for president. She said, if you walk into my house, you're getting shot. And then the whole crowd is just crickets. Oprah's like,
she's from the town. So she was telling Oprah, like, I'm on town business. And I can't have niggas running up in my house, Oprah. I don't know about you here in Chi-Town.
That's not a bad voice imitation. That could be a future.
Can you imagine Kamala?
That's not bad. That was one of the better ones I heard. There is a good one out right now. I forget the actress's name. Did a recent impersonation of her interview with ABC.
Maya Rudolph?
I think so.
She does a good Kamala.
I think so. She was also the one doing the Trump Clorox bleach imitations, but I wish I could remember her name. I haven't laughed that hard in a while. She's really on.
Can you imagine Kamala just Oprah? I don't play Oprah. You gotta mean. And then she does a Thea's face, and she just that's the Kamala Harris interview. I'm waiting. The DJ Vlad Kamala Harris interview is the one I'm waiting for, right?
Again, that's the second time you scared me. I don't want to see that interview.
You don't want to see DJ Vlad interview Kamala Harris?
Pop up on my YouTube recommended, and I would surely scroll. I'm afraid.
DJ Vlad interviewing Kamala Harris would be my personal dream come true. Imagine DJ Vlad asking her about banging Willie Brown.
I'm sorry. I'm also laughing so sad. Clark, you look like you're in the LGBTQ plus friendly. It's funny. I got a pair of that I really can't wear like that. Because I just wear a lot of black on black, and if you put those combat boots on, I couldn't blame someone if they just ran up on me. You gotta with this hair, you gotta watch how you present. So
that's messed up, Andrew. Because Clark looks like, and plus the way because he's from St. Louis. So for me personally, Clark reminds me of all the white dudes that sold dope in my neighborhood.
I've gotten that a lot. It's actually kind of embarrassing.
Clark is that's why the cops fuck with me. If Clark doesn't have a tinted out 300M on 23,
I'm gonna close my laptop.
Look, somebody said exactly my thoughts.
Oh wow. Hey, shout out to Dr. Claw 77. That one actually warms my heart a bit. Like Paul Wall, you know, he meant something to me that I don't know. I don't know if he meant the same thing to you. But he meant something to me.
Oh wait, he's not from St. Louis. He's from somewhere else in the South.
No, but he's white. He could be from wherever he wants to be from.
There were good white rappers that came out of my Bay Area scene as well. The game was changing when I was getting to be like a late teenager, like in the mid 90s. It wasn't taboo to be white, and it wasn't like a gimmick anymore to be white. And then by the 2000s, you could totally just be white. It was fine.
G-Eazy came out of your neck of the woods.
He's from Oakland. Yeah, he's younger than me, but yeah. And where I lived in West Oakland, his crew would shoot videos in the warehouse I stayed in. So when that guy blew up, it was definitely like you could totally be white.
Yeah.
But even you are a different kind of than G-Eazy. Like you look like you might fuck G-Eazy up.
I appreciate that.
Don't Clark look. Like, I'm not trying to clown. I'm just saying I would feel very safe in Clark's tinted out 300M with 23-inch rims.
The 300M, I had a basketball coach who had that. I did respect it.
No, Clark. So Clark's this. I forget what year it is. Clark's got a Charger.
No. That's the first wrong read yet. I like to go slow.
You got an old Cadillac? You got an old school?
Cadillac Catera.
God damn, Clark.
06. Bought it from an old jazz musician in St. Louis. Installed a whole Bose speaker system to listen to his own music. But needless to say, it was a good car.
Clark, man.
Broke down.
There's so many things that we can say right now that might be true.
I'm starting to get worried though, looking at the comments. Like I am looking at them, but I'm also like
you could be look, we have created, I think, on this show one of the most entertaining comment sections. And where I'm about to go right now, we're going to end the show and we're going to go to the champagne room, which is where it's just for a lot of these commenters and other people that are patrons of the shows behind a paywall. And we just say all the expletives and just say all the horrible shit. And that's what we do in the champagne room.
Bull riding Honda Civic. I was actually going to try to get us. I heard an interview where someone was talking about the Civic R. You know that one? Don't laugh. The Civic R is it's a manual transmission. One of the only ones they still make that.
No, I'm living in Mexico, man. I need a Jeep. I live off a dirt road.
Okay. Yeah, no Honda Civics over there.
Yeah, dirt road, and this ocean air has destroyed my paint.
Yeah.
I didn't have a nice paint job, but I mean, it's just gone now. So I'm looking like
it's not one of the bad things to lose. I don't have a pair of white Air Force One slides, and I have made it a point of my life to never buy a pair. So,
do you have Tim's?
No. No lines I won't cross. I have Converse.
Chucks or like the hoop shoes?
No. These hoop shoes, yeah.
Like you got the Magic Johnsons?
Yeah. And I will play in them.
Clark, check this out. In the year of our Lord, 1991, 92, I had these Magic Johnsons that my dad had got me for
those
school.
Extra padded Converse, they're like this thick on the side or something.
You know what I'm talking about, right? This is the 90s. And this is like Magic had came out and said he had HIV. Do you know what it was like going to school with Magic Johnsons on your freshman year of high school? Oh my God. Everybody said I had the AIDS shoes. Oh, that's that nigga with the AIDS shoes.
No, I thought for some convoluted reason, I thought you were going to say people supported you. I had a pure belief in the human spirit that people are like, damn, that's so great that you're supporting him.
No, teenagers are horrible.
In this time of trying time.
Nah, teenagers are like, hey, man, is it Magic Johnson's?
Yeah.
And then it was just,
You could have been like, well, they're also Larry Birds. Well, I probably shouldn't say that. Yeah.
oh God, Larry Bird in the West Coast was a despised figure.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Despised figure. The racial makeup of those two. Let's just before you go.
About the Magic Larry reconstruction of the WNBA.
I want to ask you this before we go. Actually, I'll ask you. Do you have to go, Clark? It's getting late where you are. Do you have to go? You're good? If I send you a link, do you want to join us for the champagne room?
Yeah, I'll come in for a bit.
Okay. I'm going to send Clark a link to the champagne room. Thank you guys. Wherever you're watching or listening to the show, there's links in the description to Clark's article in Jacobin. He gets even more in depth with how states are profiting off sports betting as well. So definitely please check out his article. Again, it's the first line in the description of the show. You can't miss it. So don't ask a question in the comments. Is there a place where I can find his article? It's always in the top of the description.
Please don't look at the last 3 comments. I'm going to leave this chat.
Thank you guys. And I'll see you in the champagne room. We are out.